Hi, today I wanted to talk through new indie palette releases and rank them and share which palettes I'm thinking about picking up. I have 11 new releases that I saw came out in January, so I'll be talking through them, ranking them, and then also sharing if any of them are on my wish list. Just as a disclaimer before I get started, this is mostly based on the color story, so my thoughts and how I'm ranking them is based on my preferences for the types of shades I like. Number 11 on my list is the new Blend Bunny collab palette. This is with a tattoo artist, Chanel Diabla, and she came out with this neutral gray, pink, blue, purple, red color story. I personally find it just to be a little bit too large of a palette. I don't need more grays in my collection. I don't like black or matte white shadows, and the large pans particularly would just not be used much by me. I do like the pink, purple, and blue quads, but the rest of the palette just doesn't appeal to me, so it's at the bottom of my ranking for new releases, but I know a lot of people are excited about this one, and I think the packaging that they've done for this is really cool too. So I'm glad for the people that love this color story, and I've seen some pretty looks with it. It's just not for me. Number 10 on my ranking for new palette releases is the Gourmande Girls Bleeding Hearts palette. This again has reds, which I don't love. It also has some grays and a brown, which I don't particularly need more palettes in those tones, so it's just not a color story that I'm gravitating to. I will say one of the things I do really love about this palette is that the deep shade in this palette is a deep green. I really appreciate that about a palette when it doesn't default to a matte black, so I will give it credit for that, but overall just not a color story that really calls to me, so this is not one that I will be picking up. Number 9 on this list is the Arttitude Cosmetics Moonlight Muse palette. Have several of their other palettes on my wish list. This is not one that I would probably pick up. There's a couple shades here that just seem too light. I don't like the matte white. I don't like, there's a beige, and then there's like a concrete gray beige type of shade. So those two shades are essentially filler shades in my opinion. I think the shimmers look beautiful in this. I also had this ranked in the spot below this. This was the Gourmande Girls palette until I saw swatches of this. Glitter Fairy Sarah swatched this in a way that made more sense to my brain, and it did jump up a spot just because when I saw that color story like that, it appealed to me a lot more. But overall, not a palette that I would probably pick up. For spot number 8, it's the Unearthly Cosmetics Made a Monster palette. This is one that is a pink, orange, purple color story. I think there's some really fun colors in this, but my main issues with this is there's two light peachy pink shades that I think are too light for my skin tone. I also recently picked up the Dead Cute palette from Unearthly, and I think Unearthly has moved to doing some more satin-like shimmers, and where I really thought Unearthly had a special unique formula was a lot of their twinkly shimmers, and I'm a little bit, just based on some of the swatches I've seen of this, I don't think the shimmers in this will be the kinds of formulas that I really like from Unearthly, so again, a palette that I will be passing on. Number 7 on my list is the new Nomad palette. It's the Paris palette. Palette has two sides, one that's a pinky, warmer side, and then a cooler side with some more green tones. And I think the color story is really beautiful. It is a little bit more muted grungy than I would go for, and I don't really find the theme to resonate with me in any way, so it is a palette I'll be passing on. But I think the color story overall is really cool, so that's why it comes in around the midpoint of this ranking. Next, for number 6 on my ranking of new indie palette releases is the Dede Signature Sweethearts and Secrets palette. This palette is really colorful, and I did think about picking it up at first and adding it to my wish list, but I have a couple of issues with this and something that I think ultimately I'll end up passing on. There is a matte black, which I have said a few times in this, but that's generally where things fall in my ranking and what I prefer to pick up or not, but that's a filler shade for me. There's also a beigey type shade, which I don't think I would use much of. There's also only 4 shimmers in this, so personally for me, to make this a more suited palette for how I like to do my makeup, if those 2 filler shades had been shimmers, I would have 100% picked up this palette. I think the other shades, the colorful mattes in this, are really beautiful. I really like that those shades go light to deep, and there's a variety of tones included there, and I think it would have created some beautiful looks, but I am trying this year to really only add palettes to my wish list that meet more of my palette requirements and not have any filler shades in it. So I think I'll end up passing on this, but I do think there was a lot of potential in this palette. Next on my ranking is the Singe Beauty Succulent Dew Palette. I think this color story is really beautiful. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself multiple times, but there's matte black. I think it was described more as a black and purple, but in the swatches I've seen, it looks just like a matte black. I think this palette would have been better suited as more of an overall colorful palette with just that matte black being replaced. There are other colorful tones in that go very deep, so I think you could have gotten the depth in this palette without needing that black shade. This is a palette though that overall I like the color story, and I really want to pick up Agate Temptation from the brand, and I plan to pick that up the next time Singe has a sale. If the sale applies on this palette when I pick up Agate Temptation, I would probably consider picking this palette up just because I think overall the color story matches my preferences. I'm okay with one filler shade. It's just when there happens to be more that I tend to not want to pick them up. Sort of a soft addition to my wish list where it's there, but I'm not sure if I'll ultimately end up picking it up. Next up in the number 4 spot is a palette that I did receive in PR, so there's a little bit of bias here. This is the Bella Beauté Bar and D'Angelic Pinky Promise palette. This is a pink monochromatic palette, which I know there's been some discussion on monochromatic palettes. I personally like monochromatic palettes. I do lean mostly to green monochromatic palettes, which is probably evident by the makeup look I have on and what I'm wearing, but pink is also a color that I really enjoy, so I had a lot of fun playing with this palette. When I did see it in its reveal photos before I got the palette, I did think it was really beautiful. I love how saturated it is. It's very vibrant and vivid, which is what I love for colorful shades. So this is number 4 for me. For what it is a really beautiful pink palette. We're in the top 3 now, so these are the palette releases that have really caught my eye in January. Number 3 is the Cosmic Beauty Angelic palette. This is a 12 pan from Cosmic Beauty, which is not something that they do often. They usually stick to their, I believe it's 20 pan layout, but I really love the color story in this. It also aesthetically does something that I really love seeing in palettes where the mattes and shimmers are separated. There's 2 rows of mattes and then a row of shimmers in the middle. For me, there's no filler shades. I would have preferred if the brown in it was a colorful shade and not a brown. I don't think I would pick up this palette on its own, but if I was making an order, I have Starlight Society as an example on my wish list right now, and there was a sale, I would probably throw this into my cart as well. So this is one that is on my wish list, not something that I'm picking up immediately at launch, but I do have my eye on it. For spot number 2 in new indie palette releases, it's the Lethal Cosmetics SpongeBob collaboration palette. I love this color story. Out of everything I'm sharing here, this is probably the color story I like the most. It is not number 1 for me just because I dislike the packaging. I think it's too bulky. It also has a lock and key mechanism to open it and close it. I think it would be hard to store it. This is one where I love the color story so much, so if I happen to be gifted it, I would love it. I don't think I would declutter it, but just in terms of me actually purchasing it myself, I am passing simply because of the packaging and not the color story itself. In the top spot for my ranking of new indie palette releases is the Nascent palette from Starborn Cosmetics. This is a new indie brand started by Millie, Bad to the Brow, both on YouTube here as well as Instagram. She has a lot of amazing content around multi-chromes and indie eyeshadow palettes and single shadows. She does a lot of comparisons, a lot of swatch videos on different singles that she has from brands, so I really have found her content helpful for years, and I'm really excited that she started her own brand. It's the only palette in this lineup that I actually ordered, so it officially came off my wish list into my purchases for this year. I really love this color story, and I always love trying a new brand. I always want to support creators as well, so this was an exciting opportunity to be able to do all of that together. There's 8 mattes and 4 shimmers. The mattes are a lot of the shades that I like working with, greens, blues. There aren't any filler matte shades, at least what I consider filler matte shades. They're mostly mid-tone and deep, which is what I prefer working with. Overall, beautiful color story. Excited to try this out, see how it works for me. I loved being able to share my thoughts on new indie palette releases. Again, this is all based on personal preferences. Usually work with brighter palettes. I like saturated color stories, so that is what I think the top half of this ranking really reflects. I'd love to know your thoughts on new indie palette releases. If you picked any up or if you've added any to your wish list, please feel free to share below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.